What does it mean when a man loses interest in sex? Or why is it that sometimes a man seems to have a lower sex drive than his woman? Hey, it's Alex Allman from Revolutionary Sex. I'm sorry that I'm not live with you today like my usual videos, but I'm stuck without a camera, so I figured I'd make this little presentation. I'm actually in the middle of moving. I look a little bit like this guy, except in a smaller room with a lot more boxes. But I didn't want it to stop me from bringing you some new stuff today. So today we're going to talk a little bit about this little urban legend, and the urban legend is that all men are horny all the time and will put their penis in anything with a hole. And this really has been the characterization of men in popular societal concept, not just in television and movies, but it's kind of not only the thing that women hear we're supposed to be, but we men, we hear the same kind of thing, that we're supposed to be horny all the time and that we want it all the time. And what this sets up, unfortunately for women, is a potentially painful situation. Sometimes a man has the painful situation of having a woman who's never in the mood for sex. We all know that that happens sometimes. And I think when that happens, it's extremely painful, it's humiliating, it hurts the ego. But I think it might be even a little bit worse in the other direction. Now, a lot of what I'm going to talk about in this video is applicable for men as well as women. If you're a man whose woman isn't interested in sex, you might find some enlightening ideas here. But also, if you're a man who is in a relationship with a woman who wants sex more than you do, I'm sure you know that this sets up a kind of difficult situation. It's very difficult for women because their anticipation is that you're supposed to be horny. And this is potentially embarrassing and difficult for you as a man as well. So listen up to this video. I think you might find it interesting. You might learn a few things about yourself. You might learn a few things about your relationship, whether you're a man or a woman. And this could be very valuable for you. So let's just look at a couple of the reasons why a man might have a low sex drive. And if you're fragile of ego and this might hurt your feelings, you might want to turn the video off now. He's just not that into you. This is a real possibility, obviously. And he may have once been into you. The cruel truth is that you might not be as physically attractive to him as you used to be. And that might be for reasons entirely personal to him and his taste and changes that he's undergone. It might have something to do with you and the natural process of aging and body changes that may have left him less attractive than he used to be. Now, there's things that you can do about that, not only to improve your physical appearance, which is really not what I'm talking about, but there's also other things besides purely physical attraction. There's a way to connect heart to sex drive, but that is, again, not the scope of this video. His cravings for sexual variety is higher than his cravings for you. This is probably true in any of the cases above, if you've been in a relationship for a while. The simple fact is that men are highly attracted to sexual variety. More is better. And it's very common for a man to have an affair with a woman who's nowhere near as attractive as his wife because it was easier than trying to find another attractive woman. And it was variety that he was craving on a deep instinctive level. There's a biology at work there. And what happens for some men is that they don't do the work, the self-work of understanding that there's other ways of finding sexual arousal than just variety. Variety is one of those easy ways. It's like when you're hungry and you grab a candy bar. It's easy and it's tasty, but it's not necessarily the best nor the best for you. But that's just a fact of many relationships. So again, beyond the scope of this particular video, it's the kind of thing I talk about a lot in my books and programs and also in other videos. He's having an affair and feels guilty. Yeah, I don't know why this one isn't mentioned more, but it is always a possibility that he's having an affair, particularly if there's children. He doesn't want to mess up the family. He hasn't made any decisions yet, but he feels awkward and kind of gross about having sex with you and with his mistress. And so he may have even made her promises that he's not going to be having sex with you anymore. These are all possibilities. If this tingles your spider senses, then perhaps something is going on there. Obviously, I hope this isn't the case, but these are kind of the hard, realistic ones. That's why I've got fire on them. And more fire. He's addicted to pornography. This is another big one. Again, some of these feel more likely than others, like his craving for sexual variety. That's probably going to be in there. This one's probably going to be in there too. I am amazed at the amount of sexual addiction to pornography that's happening right now. It kind of combines the television addiction and the internet addiction and the Facebook addiction of, watching screens with, the amazing dopamine release of orgasm. It is just the most naturally addictive thing in the world. A lot of men are addicted to pornography. They get their arousal needs met, their sexual needs met with porn, and they come home and they don't mind cuddling with you, but, they're not really in the mood for sex because they've already jerked off for an hour. So this is certainly a possibility. Want to kind of take a look at some of the possible solutions to these. These are kind of larger solutions. They're important. The sexual variety thing, like I said, it's a big deal. There's a possibility of a man using intimacy to link to his arousal instead of variety. This is a course of really becoming attuned to his heart and the possible erotic value in things other than variety. And again, it's probably a bigger conversation than I can go into here, but it is definitely a real possibility for couples is to begin finding their way back to intimacy and touch and closeness. Again, I think porn's a likely thing. Dealing with porn addiction, obviously, is going to be a big help if this is at cause. Even if it's not the center ring cause, it's very likely to be also going on. It's probably a factor in a man's drop in sex drive and a woman having a much stronger sex drive in the relationship than he does. There's probably some porn addiction involved here. And dealing with it sensitively, like any addiction, sensitively, is probably going to be a big part of the solution. Certainly could be part of the solution. And, like anybody who's addicted to anything, you're going to run into denial first. I think that's the first phase. They have to hit rock bottom and all that. He might never hit rock bottom. So this is a tough one. Again, not the scope of this video, but, a potentially big one. He feels judged versus making him feel sexually free with you. So yeah, a lot of men kind of lose their sex drive with the woman that they're with because the woman they're with doesn't really allow him to feel good about his actual sexual desires. He feels ashamed or judged around his real sexual proclivities, and his wife or girlfriend, kind of says things like, "Well, we like it this way, right?" And he feels compelled to agree. Or, Harold would never be interested in girls who do pornography. He hates strippers, and he feels more and more judged, and he begins to feel like he has to keep his true erotic life secret from you. Making a man feel sexually free, making all of his sexual desires welcome in the relationship is the way around this so that he feels good and open and feels great about being sexual with you. And for a lot of men, for a lot of humans, obviously, but for a lot of men, sexual shame is a big deal. They've had problems their whole life with it. And the way around this, a lot of women, they think, well, if I admit that it's okay for him to think that strippers are sexy, then he's going to want to go to strip clubs all the time. And there's a real difference there. There's a real difference between what we do and what turns us on. And obviously there are ways for you to satisfy his appetites, or at least make them clean with you, that it's okay that he likes that. Because him pretending he doesn't like what he likes isn't really going to get you what you want either. And indeed, as I've said to many women before, you really don't want to be in a relationship with a man who's not sexually turned on by naked women. You want a man who does like naked women, and making him feel good about that is the first step to channeling those desires towards you. It's counterintuitive because most women think they need to kind of deal with the threat. And unfortunately, when you feel like you need to deal with the threat, it really does put you in the boat of the people who aren't included in his sexual interests. And the other possibility is that he's punishing you. He might be punishing you because he feels sexually judged. He might be punishing you because of you made him feel belittled or small in some other way. Again, I've talked about this in other videos. When a man and a woman get into an argument and a woman is going to use withholding sex as a weapon, she says so. She says, that's it. I'm not going to have sex with you. I can only have sex when I feel safe, and you disagreeing with me about the kind of dishes we should buy makes me feel unsafe. So I'm not going to have sex with you. Women are kind of overt about it, but men are not. When a man feels like, you bought the dishes that he really didn't like because they reminded him of his grandmother's house, but you bought them anyway, and he has no power in the relationship, he feels kind of emasculated, and he's like, no, that's fine. You can buy those dishes. And then he rolls over that night and doesn't want to have sex with you, but he doesn't say that he's using sex as a weapon because it feels kind of shameful or emasculating to him. So he punishes you in secret. It's a little more passive-aggressive when men do it. So he might be punishing you and you don't know it. And again, the way around this is open communication and really being forthright about getting to the bottom of all of these things, not letting them fester, because anywhere there's a grudge, and there could be, I did that because he did that. And, I wouldn't have done that if he hadn't done that thing first. And if you asked him, he'd say, well, I did that because you did that. I assure you there's no bottom to these things. If you're busy looking for who's at fault, you will have to resign yourself to a shitty relationship and possibly no sex. If you realize at some point that whose fault it is a whole lot less important than being in love, then you can move forward. A couple of options that you have. Those are obviously some possibilities and solutions. But here are some options that I think a woman should consider, a couple should consider. A couple of options for couples. The safe conversation. The safe conversation is the conversation you have that does not begin with, so what's wrong? Because, I feel like you've been avoiding me and you don't want to have sex with me and I want to talk about it. That's a very threatening conversation. The safe conversation is to first set a safe space for it and say, listen, Saturday afternoon after the kids go off to that thing, I was hoping we might be able to sit down and carve out some time and really have a conversation about some things that I've been frightened of lately, and I really want your help in. And as a matter of the love between us, which is so important to me, which I prioritize so highly, I want to be able to just kind of get things out in a way that's safe and comfortable for both of us. And then you can arrive in that space and maybe set a couple of intentions like, look, let's not get angry no matter what. If something comes up that triggers you or makes you feel angry or like I'm saying something unfair, let's just stop and clean that up. A conversation like this could take a very long time, but if it's done right, you can have big results. The will to work is another big one. A lot of people just want it easy. You just want him to have a higher sex drive. And that's it. Take a testosterone shot. But that's probably not going to work. You need to make it a priority. You need to make it worth it. And you need to be willing to put forth the investment in possibly making real changes to your relationship, which is scary because it's been a certain way for a certain amount of time and feels like changing might be bad or difficult. But the will to work, to face your fears and actually do something about it. Surrender is a big one. It's the other end of the will to work, the willingness to give up who you think you're supposed to be and the way it's supposed to be, and surrender to the possibility of something bigger, of making real change, of making love more important than the person who you pretend to be all day when you're really, frightened and lonely. So surrendering to the relationship, surrendering to the higher power that is love and is the relationship. And of course, if all these fail, there's always the unconsidered options, the options of opening the relationship. Maybe you're great business partners, but you're not good sex partners anymore. And maybe you should have an open relationship. That feels scary and horrible, but for some couples, it's an option. Unconsidered options like maybe it's time to complete the relationship. Maybe you've learned everything that you needed to learn from each other and it's time to move on. There's many other unconsidered options. Most humans have a bias towards creating, well, it's either going to be this or that. And anytime that you see that you've really only got two options left, that is always a lie. That's always a thing that you're doing to deceive yourself. There are always other options in between that you haven't considered. And of course, if you're willing to do some work, I recommend Revolutionary Sex for Her, my program. There's a bunch, if you're a man, obviously, my Revolutionary Sex program. But if you're a woman listening to this, these are all topics I go more deeply into. And I hope you'll consider getting the program if you don't already have it. It's a rather serious-minded program for relationship health through improving sexuality, which I think is really one of the core, maybe the core and most important way of achieving love and intimacy in a relationship that's more than just a friendship. This is Alex Holm with Revolutionary Sex. I will be back with you next week and hopefully a moving video image. Talk to you then.